If you're investing in the stock market while carrying 22% credit card debt, you're not building wealth. You're lighting your future on fire. Let that sink in for a second. You're putting money into something that might make 7% a year, while something else is guaranteed to charge you 22%. That's not a strategy. That's financial self-sabotage. Stay with me until the end of this video, because once you understand the right order to invest your money, you'll see every financial decision differently. You'll understand why some people quietly get rich while everyone else keeps spinning in circles. My name is Nick. I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about money, investing, and why so many smart people keep doing this in the worst possible order. If at any point this video makes you go, "How did nobody tell me this earlier?" do me a favor. Hit like, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It helps the channel more than you think, and it might actually help someone you care about stop making painfully expensive mistakes. Now, let me hit you with a brutal reality. Right now, roughly 1 in 3 Americans doesn't even have an emergency fund. The median amount saved for emergencies? About $500. $500. That's less than a typical monthly car payment. And that number has actually been going down, not up.
At the same time, people with no savings are asking, should I buy individual stocks? Is this the right time to jump into crypto? That's like asking, should I get a Ferrari when you don't have enough money to fix the transmission on the car you already own? Here's the truth most people never hear clearly. There is a right order to investing your money, a sequence. And if you follow it, you can save tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. If you ignore it, you can grind for years and feel like you're going nowhere. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through that order, step by step. No fluff, no get-rich-quick nonsense. Just the real hierarchy of where your dollar should go and why. And if you stick around to the end, I promise you'll understand something most people never do about money. Wealth isn't just about what you invest in. It's about when and in what order you do it. All right, let's build this from the ground up. First mini hook. Before you invest a single dollar, you need to protect yourself from life. I know that sounds boring. Emergency fund doesn't exactly trend on TikTok, but this is the first domino. If it doesn't fall, nothing else works properly. An emergency fund is not just cash sitting in a savings account. It's a psychological shield.
Because here's what actually happens in real life. Your car breaks down. You get hit with a medical bill. Your hours get cut at work. If you don't have an emergency fund, you have 2 options. You either sell your investments at the worst possible time, or you swipe a credit card and start paying insane interest. Both of those destroy long-term wealth. But if you have even a small buffer, you don't have to panic sell your investments. You don't have to go into debt to survive a bad month. You buy yourself time, and time is everything in investing. So how much should you save? You've probably heard the old rule, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Nice idea. Totally useless if you're broke and overwhelmed. Let's make it practical. Step 1. Scrape together your first $1,000 as fast as you can. Sell something. Pick up a few extra shifts. Cut absolutely everything non-essential. That first 1,000 is not about the number. It's about the feeling. I'm not totally exposed anymore. Step 2. Build that up to 1 month of bare bones living expenses. Rent, food, utilities, gas. No luxuries. Once you hit that, step 3 is to keep going until you've got around 3 months saved.
Now, can you go beyond that? Absolutely. If you're a freelancer, self-employed, or in a volatile industry, 6 months or even more may make sense. If you've got a super stable government job with great benefits, 3 months might be plenty. Here's the wild part. Vanguard did research and found that people with just $2,000 in emergency savings had financial well-being scores 21% higher than people with no emergency fund at all. 21%. That's a massive jump in peace of mind for what is basically a small cushion. So yeah, an emergency fund doesn't sound sexy, but it keeps you from torpedoing your future every time life punches you in the face. If this is already shifting how you think about extra cash, tap the like button, share this video with one person who needs a wake-up call, and subscribe so you don't forget this stuff in 3 days. Most people never get this foundation right. You don't have to be one of them. Next mini hook. Once you've built a cushion,
there's a financial emergency quietly eating your future alive: high-interest debt. This is step 2 in the order, and it's non-negotiable. When I say high-interest debt, I'm talking about anything charging you more than roughly 8% a year. In practice, the big villain here is credit card debt. Average credit card interest right now? Over 20%. Some cards are 22% or more.
Think about what that means. Every month you carry that balance, it's growing faster than almost any investment you can reasonably expect to have over the long term. You're trying to fill a bucket while the bottom is wide open. Carrying credit card debt while investing is like trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of rocks. You can be incredibly disciplined, incredibly motivated, and still lose to someone walking calmly without that weight. Let's do a quick example. You've got $5,000 on a card at 22% interest. You make only the minimum payments. Over 5 years, you'll pay almost $2,800 just in interest. That's $2,800 you didn't use to build wealth. You used it to rent money from a bank. Now flip that. Every dollar you put toward that debt is essentially giving you a guaranteed 22% return because you're eliminating that future interest. A guaranteed 22% beats almost any long-term stock market expectation and even Warren Buffett's track record. So how do you attack this efficiently? Write down all your debts, the balances, and the interest rates. Pay the minimum on everything. Then throw every extra dollar you can squeeze out of your life at the highest interest rate first. That's called the debt avalanche method. Mathematically, it saves you the most money.
There's also the debt snowball method, where you pay off the smallest balances first so you can feel quick wins and stay motivated. If you're the type of person who really needs that psychological momentum, use it. Progress beats perfection. But just know, the avalanche is more efficient on paper. Now, before we move on, there's one big twist, and this is where the order starts to get interesting. Because there's one thing I want you to do even before you finish paying off all that high-interest debt. Why would I tell you to invest before you're done killing your debt? Because sometimes the return is just too good to ignore. Step 3 in the optimal order: grab your employer match. If your employer offers a retirement plan with matching contributions, this is one of the closest things to free money you will ever get in your life. You put in $1, they put in 50 cents, or maybe even another full dollar. That's an instant 50% to 100% return before the market even does anything. Even if you're paying 22% on a card, a guaranteed 50% or 100% return is hard to beat. Here's a simple example. Let's say your employer matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. You make $50,000 a year. If you contribute $3,000, 6% of your salary, your employer kicks in another $1,500. You just turned $3,000 into $4,500 instantly.
No stock, no crypto, no option strategy in the world can guarantee that. So here's the practical rule. Contribute enough to get the full employer match, not a dollar less. Then every other spare dollar goes straight back to crushing that high interest debt. There is one caveat: vesting. Some companies require you to stay a certain number of years before all that matching money is truly yours. If you leave early, you might forfeit some of it. So check your plan's vesting schedule. Know the rules of the game you're playing. But even with vesting, in most cases, the match is still too good to pass up. At this point, if you follow the order, here's what you've done. You've built an emergency fund. You're eliminating high-interest debt. You're grabbing free money from your employer. You've patched the holes in your bucket. Now, finally, we can start filling it in a way that really compounds. If that makes sense so far, hit like, share this with someone who's still trying to YOLO their way into wealth, and subscribe so you can follow along as we go deeper. This is where most people start, and it's exactly where they should be arriving after doing the groundwork. Next, mini hook. After the match, most people shove extra money into their 401k and call it a day. That's a mistake.
Step 4 in the optimal order: max out your IRA before you put more into your 401k beyond the match. Why? Because IRAs usually give you two critical advantages: lower fees and more control. Many employer 401k plans are loaded with expensive mutual funds and limited investment choices. It's like going to a restaurant that only serves 3 dishes, and all of them are overpriced. Inside an IRA, Whether it's at Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, or another reputable broker, you can pick low-cost index funds and ETFs with tiny expense ratios. We're talking fees of 0.03%, 0.05%, instead of 1% or 2%. That difference sounds small until you stretch it over 30 years. A 1% fee on your investments can cost you tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. That's money silently drifting from your account into a fund manager's new car. Right now, the IRA contribution limit is $7,000 a year, or $8,000 if you're 50 or older. These numbers can change over time, so always check the current IRS rules, but the ballpark stays similar. Once you're putting enough into your 401k to get the full match, the next dollars typically belong in an IRA because you can invest them more efficiently. Now, there's another choice inside all of this that trips people up and keeps a lot of financial advisors in business: traditional or Roth.
Here's the core question. Do you want to pay taxes now or later? With a traditional IRA or 401k, you get a tax deduction today. Your money grows tax-deferred. But when you pull it out in retirement, you pay taxes on it as ordinary income. With a Roth, it's the opposite. You pay the taxes now, no deduction today. But in retirement, your withdrawals are completely tax-free, if you follow the rules. So, which one do you choose? General rule of thumb: if you're in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower bracket later, traditional might make more sense. If you're in a lower bracket now and expect to be in a higher one later, Roth is often more attractive. Young people just starting their careers are usually in their lowest earning years. Odds are their income and tax rate will rise over time. For them, Roth contributions can be insanely powerful. Pay tax on your smaller income now, then enjoy tax-free growth and withdrawals later. If you're at your peak earning years, making the most you've ever made, reducing your taxable income today with traditional contributions could be smarter. And if you're not sure, split it. Do some traditional, some Roth. That's called tax diversification. Future you gets flexibility when deciding where to pull money from in retirement.
All right, we've covered employer match and IRA, but there's a sleeper account almost nobody talks about properly. There's one account in the US that can give you tax benefits when you put money in, while it grows, and when you take it out. 3 layers of tax advantages. Most people either ignore it or use it wrong. I'm talking about the Health Savings Account, or HSA. If you have a high-deductible health plan, you might be eligible for an HSA. And if you are, this can be one of the most powerful tools in your entire financial toolbox. Here's why HSAs are special. First, your contributions are tax-deductible. That's like a traditional IRA. Second, your investments inside the HSA grow tax-free. No tax on dividends or capital gains. Third, and this is the magic, withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are also tax-free. Tax break on the way in, no tax while it grows, no tax on the way out if it's for medical costs. Nothing else works like that. For 2024, HSA contribution limits are in the low 4,000s for individuals and a bit over 8,000 for families. Those numbers adjust over time, so again, check current limits when you're watching this. So, what's the strategy? Most people treat their HSA like a spend-as-you-go account. They put money in, then immediately use it to pay medical bills. That's okay, but it's not optimal if you can afford another approach.
If you can pay your medical expenses out of pocket today without blowing up your budget, do that. Let the money in your HSA stay invested and grow. Here's the key detail. There's no time limit on when you can reimburse yourself for a qualified medical expense. That means you can go to the doctor this year, pay with your own cash, save the receipt, and then 20 years from now, you can pull that same amount out of your HSA completely tax-free. So your HSA becomes this stealth retirement account focused on future medical costs, which, let's be honest, are almost guaranteed. After age 65, HSAs get even more flexible. You can withdraw money for non-medical purposes too. You'll pay ordinary income tax on those withdrawals, just like a traditional IRA, but no penalty. And any withdrawals for qualified medical expenses stay tax-free. Now zoom out for a second. Imagine you consistently max out your HSA for 20 or 30 years. You invest that money in a diversified portfolio earning, say, 7% annually. You could easily have a 6-figure, possibly multiple 6-figure, tax-free pot dedicated to medical costs and retirement. Considering the average American couple is projected to spend over $300,000 on healthcare and retirement, that's not a small advantage. That's the difference between panic and peace.
So after grabbing your employer match and maxing your IRA, if you're eligible for an HSA and a high deductible plan makes sense for your health situation, this is a huge priority. If hearing about the HSA this way is new to you, hit like, share this video with someone who has an HSA but is just letting it sit in cash, and subscribe. Most people never realize they're holding a potential tax superpower in their hands. At this point, you're doing more than 90% of people ever will. But we're not done yet. Step 6 in the order. Go back and max out your 401k or other employer plan beyond the match. Remember, we started with just enough to get the free money. Now, after building your emergency fund, paying off high-interest debt, grabbing your employer match, maxing your IRA, and fully funding your HSA, the next investment dollar usually belongs back in your 401k. Why? Because more money sheltered from current taxes means more compounding working for you instead of the IRS. For 2024, the 401k contribution limit is in the low $20,000 for most people, with higher catch-up limits if you're 50 or older. Again, check current numbers. They change. The principle doesn't. Combine your 401k, IRA, and HSA, and you might be able to shelter well over $30,000 a year from current taxation. If you can consistently do that, even for a decade, you're stacking the deck heavily in your favor. Here's the crazy part. Most people never get this far. The average American saves around 6% of their income total. That's usually not enough to even hit the employer match plus a full IRA contribution, let alone HSAs and full 401k limits. If you're working through this entire sequence, you are in rare territory, top 5% of savers type of territory. You're building a future most people will call lucky when they see it from the outside. Now, finally, we get to the part everybody wants to start with, mini hook. This is the playground, the Wild West, the place where people brag and also quietly blow themselves up. Step 7, taxable investment accounts. This is your regular brokerage account. No contribution limits, no age restrictions on withdrawals. You can buy individual stocks, index funds, ETFs, even speculative stuff like crypto or options if you really want to dance with risk. There's a ton of flexibility here, and that's exactly why people rush into it first and why they get burned. The big downside of taxable accounts is simple: taxes. Every time you get dividends, you might owe tax. Every time you sell something for a gain, you owe capital gains tax. Hold something for less than a year and sell it? Those gains are usually taxed at your ordinary income rate. Is that the end of the world? No, but it's drag. It slows down your compounding. Let me paint a picture. Say you invest $10,000 a year for 30 years, earn 7% annually, and pay no taxes along the way, like in a tax-advantaged account. You end up with around $944,000. Now, take that same $10,000 a year and same 7% return, but in a taxable account where you're regularly paying taxes on dividends and gains. Depending on your situation and behavior, you might end up closer to $700,000. That's $250,000 gone. Same contributions, same gross return. The only difference is taxes. That's why tax-advantaged accounts come first in the hierarchy. But taxable accounts still matter a lot because they give you flexibility your retirement accounts don't. Want to buy a house in 5 to 7 years? A taxable brokerage account is perfect for that kind of medium-term goal. Want to retire early, in your 40s or early 50s, before you can tap most retirement accounts penalty-free? Your taxable investments can bridge that gap.
Planning to leave money to your kids? Taxable accounts can get what's called a step-up in basis when you die, meaning your heirs might avoid capital gains taxes on all those years of appreciation. So no, taxable accounts aren't bad. They just shouldn't be your starting point if you haven't handled the basics first. Let's zoom out and put all of this together. Here's the optimal order we've been building toward. One more time. First, build an emergency fund. Start with $1,000, then 1 month of expenses, then up to 3 to 6 months depending on your situation. Second, attack all high-interest debt, especially credit cards. You're not investing while you're paying 20% interest to a bank. You're digging. Third, Contribute enough to your employer's retirement plan to get the full match. That's free money. Don't walk past it. Fourth, max out your IRA, where you get better investment options and lower fees. Choose between traditional and Roth based on your tax situation, or split the difference for flexibility. Fifth, if you're eligible and it fits your health needs, use an HSA as a stealth retirement and healthcare account. Triple tax advantages. Almost nobody uses it optimally. Sixth, go back and increase contributions to your 401k or employer plan beyond the match, up to the legal limits. Let those tax deferrals supercharge your compounding.
Seventh, invest in taxable accounts for flexibility, early retirement, and goals that don't fit neatly into the retirement account box. That's the sequence. This is how you stop throwing money at random things and start building a system. A system where every dollar knows its job and every decision you make is aligned with a long-term plan instead of short-term excitement. Here's the real payoff for staying until now. Wealth isn't built by finding the hottest investment. It's built by avoiding the dumb mistakes that quietly drain your future. The order you follow, the sequence, is what protects you from those mistakes. Most people never understand this. They chase tips, they chase trends. They obsess over which stock to buy while losing far more money to interest, taxes, and bad timing than they'll ever make in the market. You don't have to live like that. You can decide right now to do it in the right order, to build the boring, solid foundation first, to grab the free money, to use the tax code to your advantage, and only then to play in the Wild West with money you can truly afford to risk. I'm not your financial advisor. I don't know your specific situation, but I do know this. People who respect the order of operations with their money tend to quietly end up where everyone else wishes they could be. If this episode gave you even one "why has nobody explained it like this before" moment, don't let it just fade away. Hit the like button so more people actually see it. Share it with a friend or family member who is asking, should I invest in this, but doesn't even have $1,000 in savings yet. And if you want more straight, no BS conversations about money, investing, and building a life that isn't controlled by financial stress, subscribe to the channel. I'll leave you with this. The market will always be unpredictable. The economy will always be noisy. But the order in which you handle your money, that's completely under your control. Most people are busy trying to pick the next Tesla. You can be the one quietly building the system that makes you wealthy no matter what the next hot stock is. The question is, which person do you want to be when you look back 20 years from now?